45.
Hey, check it out. This is Eminem, and the Streetz is watching.
Cannon.
We know drama in the homie
The wait is finally over. The affiliates have taken over the wheel. Right here on the Streetz is watching on Shade 45.
888 Shade 45 Friday night. DJ Drama, Trendsetter Sense, Don Cannon. Like I told you, tonight is special because I got two gentlemen in here that are pretty much the reason why I do what I do in so many ways, you know, specifically when it comes to mixtapes, but beyond that, and even beyond just myself, you know, they're innovators, they're culture creators. They are probably the reasons why, you know, hip hop has gone into the space that it has become. And, you know, without these two guys, I really don't know where the game would be. And they're in Atlanta right now, and we're celebrating. I got DJ Ron G and Doo-Wop here.
What up, what up?
What's up, y'all? How you feeling?
What's good, baby?
Everything's good.
My brother.
Most definitely, man. I mean, first and foremost, man, what's up, y'all? This is so exciting for me. Like I said, like, you know, you guys are like the reasons why I wanted to become a mixtape DJ, period, point blank, you know, and to see both of y'all in the room right now is it's very special.
You always acknowledge that too, and we appreciate it. I know I definitely all the time, brother. Like you always mention 95 Live, you mention the blend. Like you break it down right to the exact tape, a certain tape of Ron's, like a number 13 or whatever. You know what I mean? You know, I'm into him. Definitely appreciate it.
That had always been important to me. Like, you know, when I first started getting notoriety and doing interviews and everything, and really just kind of paying homage, you know what I'm saying? I always think that's important. You know, it may lack a little bit in today's generation per se, but again, you know, I mean, Ron, let's just start right there. Like, I really feel like you are the reason why hip-hop went in a certain direction in the 90s when it came to, you know, you taking acapellas and R&B acapellas and putting them over hip-hop beats.
The blends.
And because of your blends, like, I mean, you know, a few years later, it was a style that Puff kind of took and it became a global phenomenon.
Well, I think a lot of DJs back in the days didn't experiment the way I did. It was a few others that probably did, like Grandmaster Vic, the E Brothers, but I just took it to another level and made it, I would say, commercialized it. I made it where everybody loved it. And me and Watt were just talking about that, and I said, you know, the hustlers helped me become who I am because they was like, yo, G, shout out my girl, man. And that, along with the blends,
right,
killed them.
So, and I talk about that, you know, I've discussed that because in that time, you know, a lot of mixtapes, and I want you guys to touch on this, but before, you know, we had the internet age, and before it was, you know, people were buying masters and things of that nature. You guys were kind of almost like making tapes, and people were buying them individually. Like, you know, the hustlers, the big money niggas in the streets was coming, and they wanted to hear their names on the tapes so they could ride through the neighborhood. And is this accurate? Like, take me back a little bit.
Yeah,
huh?
well, when I started it, you know, I had a few people like my man Big Age. You know, he would get his BMW custom made. So he'd be like, yo, Ron, shout out Big Age with the white and green BMW. You know, and I just had a lot of people at that time who were like, really was like, yo, your blends with the shout outs, yo, man, it's all day, Ron. So I started paying heed to that. And I was like, yo, if I can please the older people, which is, you know, my mom, because my mom's always like, I don't want to hear this hip hop, skip hop, Scooby Doo in my house. So I always be like, well, if I get my mom to like what I'm doing and then please the hustlers and the guys my age, then probably I got something. So I would go in her room and I would take like her Lou Rawls cassettes, Michael Jackson cassettes and Temptations, and I would just listen to them and I'd be like, okay, this beat don't sound as strong as it should. Let me put a beat behind that. And then I'd go play it to my mom. She'd go, oh, this sound good, baby. And I was like, all right. So I got something. That's one blend.
Got you. So
and
she was the first fan.
Yeah, she was the first fan, along with like my crew, you know, from Harlem. And then by the time I got to the hustlers, they were just more like, yo, this is dope. Yo, this is dope, G. So it motivated me to continue to do what I was doing at that time. And then listening to R&B, it was so I would say the bottom of the R&B albums and songs at the time was like, I would say balloonish.
Gotcha.
It wasn't heavy bottom. So I was like, well, if I put a Bismarck beat behind this, them guys with them trucks and cars, they gonna like this, and that's what I did. And I created a huge fan base.
So it was a blend. It was no acapella. I mean, acapella.
Yeah, it wasn't acapella.
But it was
at
like
that
a
time.
whole song with a beat and another beat under it.
Yeah,
Crazy.
so that's what kind of made it interesting because I would turn down the bass
Okay. Yep.
on the song, and back then, we had mixes where you can do that before, now with all the technology. But that's how I did it.
It was like the hot day on Reach Out and
Yeah.
Like
So
that type
that
of
was
shit.
it. Was that type of vibe. But what I did was I made it to where I would take slow songs like Ralph Tresvant and No Edition and put like hip hop beat behind it. And they were like, "Yo, G, yo, man, what made you come up with that?" And I was like, "Yo, I just was being creative." And I got famous doing that. And that was my thing. I always wanted to be famous, and that was the way I did it.
What about you?
Well, I was telling him earlier when I started doing the tapes, Stereo Palace was a store on 125th, directly across the street from the Apollo Theater. There was the main spot to get the new Kid Capri, Star Child, Brucey. They started getting like Triple C around that time. I think SNS.
What year would you say
this
this
was?
was?
89, maybe 89.
Okay.
And I was working a regular job, but I tried to put something together. I've been DJing all my life, but at that point I wanted to
How
make
old were you then?
mixtapes. 19,
okay.
1989, 19.
Okay.
So I did a tape, and I went there and I gave it to the dudes, the two white boys that own the store, and they was like, "All right, we're gonna check it out." So every day, like for 2-3 weeks, I would just walk by the store because they would play like Kid Capri tapes outside,
Yep.
blasting loud from a gym sound speaker. So I would go by there and just walk by and see if they was playing my joint. I would get off, on 125th, which I lived way far from there uptown. I used to get off there just to walk back and forth and see if they was playing my joint. I went inside. I'm like, finally got tired. I'm like, "Yo, what's up? Like, why you don't play my shit?" And he's like, "You gave us a 60-minute tape, dude. It's supposed to be 90 minutes. We can't get in touch with you."
So you
back
was just
then,
doing 30 minutes on one side, 30 on the
so
other.
I got fed up, and the reason why I said that story because he said about the hustlers. I just took and I stood in front of their store like that weekend after they told me that, and I sold my own joints. And the hustlers was buying it. You know what I mean? Like that was mostly. You know what I mean? Even literally like the dudes you be hearing about nowadays in the stories and the Fed magazines, all like they would roll up
They
and
were
buy
our
it.
clientele. They was the guys who would be like, "Yo, I need that."
Yeah. So then that's when they saw that. That's where they took me in. So right there is like the beginning of the whole joint. Like I don't think you know what I mean. Like that store gave me the start, but it took them rejecting me first, right, for me to say I'm gonna stand out here and do it myself. You know what I mean? Because I ain't had no other way to do it. I thought that was the only way. So
Before you guys kind of became the top of the food chain, who would you say was, the king in the streets and mixtapes?
Capri.
Yeah, Capri. And for me, it was Star Child, too. Because Star Child, he actually taught me how to do parties. When I was coming up, he would be like, he'll come to one of my parties, and he'd be like, "Yo, man, Ron, you got a great voice. Do something with it." And he'd be like, "Yo, when I DJ, I would sing along with records." And I'd be like, I don't know why I knew that. You know what I mean? Singing along with records at a party. But Star Child would say, you gotta hype the crowd up a certain way. And I always would credit him and Kid because them two guys there, they were like left and right. Kid had the intros along with the voice, and Star Child had the singing stuff. And then I heard like Starsky do it. Rest in peace to Starsky. So, I mean, those are my inspiration. Even though I lived across the street in Polo Grounds where Brucey B used to DJ at, I used to listen more to Star Child and Kid Capri before I listened to Bruce. And but when I was doing the blends, I just had to take it a whole nother direction to where I can create my own fan base.
Who were some of the first artists that embraced y'all?
Well, way back then, actually, Mary J. Blige. That was like, back then when you making tapes, you would look at the back of the credits and see if somebody they shout you out. Special thanks, special shout.
Right.
We check every goddamn album. And Mary J. Blige said, I was like, this all I need. It was in her first album. She said Doo-Wop and the Bounce Squad, within a million other names.
I had support from everybody. From one of the first artists that showed me love was Stretch Naughty by Nature, Redman, Biggie. One of the most memorable moments was the Tupac. when I met Tupac. And Tupac was like, Ron G, man, yo, I heard of you, man. I heard of you through Biggie, man. And I was like, yo.
Where'd you meet him at?
I met Tupac in a club downtown somewhere because Biggie was telling me he was opening up for Tupac. And he was like, yo, Ron, did you come down, you know what I'm saying, show that support? And it was just incredible to have all these rappers come into my studio, like how you are now. I was like that yesterday. That's why I'm like, yo, I look up to you now because you doing it big. We was doing it like in the crib, you know what I mean? Now you're like, and we had so many celebrities come by the studio. It was just people would come by and people would actually wait for me outside the door, like outside my crib. When I come home, they like, yo, what up, G? I'm like, Redman? Nah.
The night of the Pop Quad incident, he just left your crib.
Yeah,
he was at his crib.
I think I've heard about that.
Yeah,
That's noted that he
Tupac
just left because wasn't he doing a record with Lil Sean?
No,
That's what he was going to do.
He was going to do the record with Lil Sean.
But when he was at my house, that was because when Pac gave me his number, he was like, yo, you the only person, the only DJ I would give my number to. So I was like, all right. So I had called Pac one day, he ain't answer. And I was like, oh, man, you know, he gonna do me like this? And then one day I called him, and he was like, yo, I'll be in New York, man. I'm coming to uptown, man. Where you at? And I gave him my address, and he showed up, and he did the song for me. And when he did the 16 bars, he was telling, in the song, he's basically saying how people was trying to kill him and all this stuff. And I'm sitting there in shock, like, yo, this dude is illmatic. Like, I never met anybody like him. And then when he left my studio, I think like 4 hours later, he got shot at guard.
Wow.
So, you know, and I always talk about that time was like a crazy time in my life because I had detectives at my house every day.
Wow.
For like a month, asking me questions. I'm like,
based upon that?
Yeah, I'm like, I'm a DJ. I don't know nothing about what was going on, you know. But, you know, that was so crazy because then one day I did a party in Jersey and the Outlaws came to me and it was like, gee, you know, Tupac said he know you ain't had nothing to do with that. He got love for you. So it was just all these little journeys. And then Tretch always being down with Pac. And it was just an incredible situation. But to see Biggie and Tupac beefing at that time was like, it was hurtful to me because I'm like, yo, these two guys, they both crazy.
That was ill because Tupac, a record came out, like a million records came out after he passed away, but it was one called War Games with the Outlaws.
Yeah.
And he said, "Do-wop, don't get your ass fucked up or something."
Yeah.
Because the King's Son record that I put on my tape in '96, so he did it around that time, and they kept the verse and added to the thing. And the Outlaws saw me about a year after he got murdered and shit. They saw me in Vegas, and I was doing a party, but like Prodigy was standing right here, Jay-Z was right there, Method Man was on my right. Like I was playing a lot of New York shit. I knew you got to play everything
for sure.
They was like, "How the fuck you gonna come out here and not, you know, this way Pac was assassinated?" They was right what they were saying, but I just ain't get to that yet. I didn't get to that set yet, but they were really like tight, like really tight. It's like the whole opposite of what they showed you.
Yeah, it was
love.
crazy. I never known that, but when I heard him say, "Wow," I'm thinking he ain't like Lauryn Hill, so maybe he was talking about the record. I'm like, "Wow, you never told me this, man. Yeah. I knew you all my life."
Would that happen a lot when it came to the tapes, and if you would put certain records on there and artists would catch feelings like?
I think back then it was more personal. It wasn't just about the records. It was about relationships. Like it was really deep in those days. I mean, I'm quite sure it's deep now, but back in those days, like I actually tell people, like they say, "How you and WAP relationship?" I'm like, WAP is like my brother, man. I love this dude here. You know what I mean? And back in those days, to have artists feel that same way about you, and then they become enemies, and then if you do a song with them, now you become their enemy. It was all crazy. It was like
95 Live too.
Yeah.
Tape you speak about a lot too. Like Q-Tip had said a rhyme and he was going off head. It was just something New York needed a little boost. So I put something together and everybody, and Q-Tip was like, he came in the studio, he said, "Cut the reel on. I'm gonna rhyme for 10 minutes. And then I'm gonna write my rhyme from that freestyle." So he just freestyled for 10 minutes and then he took the best parts of it, and there's one part he said, "To your West Coast haters, we will bust your shit."
Yep.
He didn't mean it that. He meant like if you hating from, he ain't meant like the whole West Coast. Ice Cube took major offense. They had like big drama. They like had like a confrontation somewhere. I wasn't there, but they had like big beef.
Yeah, I remember
over
that.
Yeah.
those were the days, though. Even though it was crazy.
Ron G, Doo-Wop are here. Doo-Wop, you brought it up, so let's touch on it now. 95 Live, a tape that, I hold so personal, and those around me shot the sense of canon. Like, to me, that tape was just, it was game changing. And I just want you to touch on it a little bit. Like, how did it come about? And, like, is it accurate to say, like, that was the first of its kind where you kind of, like, I know people would rhyme on tapes before, but I feel like that was the tape where it was, like, you know, you had MCs specifically spitting for
that
you.
were out at the time.
That were
like
hot.
Biggest
like,
album.
Yeah, the hottest artists
Raekwon.
out. And, you know, you kind of.
It came about because from 93 and 94, I was doing the mixtapes with a crew that I assembled myself. Bounce Squad.
Yep.
And Snagglepuss was like our Method Man, right?
He was fire.
So everybody, every time they want to hear the intro, that was like one of the highlights. Even though I rhymed, they rhymed, he was the highlight. So I got a deal with New Tribe Virgin when they first signed the Loonies, and they signed Doo-Wop, only me, to the deal. But the A&R was from New York, and he told the guy who owned the label, he said, he got a whole crew with him. Like, you don't know about this? We need to sign all of them. I added them to my deal, not knowing the business. I just added them. I could have got them all separate deals. I added them to my deal.
So obviously
and that
it's
just
probably
caused all
before
kinds
Wu-Tang.
of right before Wu-Tang.
Yeah.
It caused all kinds of crazy shit with like why I was getting a little more than they was getting, you know. And Snag just went behind my back and signed a solo deal with them. So now he's not. Basically, we not down together no more.
Okay.
So now I got to come up. The reason why I let him lean up to that is because now 95 is around the corner. I got to come up with an idea of I'm not going to do an intro without him. But I'm not gonna do something with him because we not rocking like that, right? So I got to come up with something. So I'm just chilling, trying to get it together, see what I'm gonna do for my next tape. Because now it's like every 2 months we would drop a tape, and people were waiting. So Scoop was working, Fat Man Scoop was working at Tommy Boy at the time, marketing, street promotion. He called me with them generic calls. Yo, you got this record? You got New Jersey Drive? And I was like, yeah, I got everything, Scoop. I'm about to hang up. He go, yo, Buster said, what's up? And at that time, even though 95, you would probably say like you probably thought that I had relationships with all these guys.
Right.
I didn't know these guys. I just knew like Fat Joe because he was from the BX.
Right.
I said, Busta Rhymes? He was like, yeah, he want to talk to you. He got on the phone. He said, anytime you need me for anything, I'm there. I want to get on one of those tapes. And at that point, I didn't have any known rappers on my tapes. I just had the Bounce Squad. So that's what kicked it off. Then I called Joe. Joe gave me Raekwon's number. You know what I mean? It was like a domino effect, and I got everybody, and they were like really open to do it, and they had no money involved. Not a dime. It was just studio. I just paid for my studio time. I locked in like for about 2 weeks. At one time, I remember it was a studio half the size of this room. I had M.O.P., Buster, Fat Joe, and Q-Tip all in one room.
Crazy.
Dude. It was half the size. They were all going. And they was happy to be there too. You know, it wasn't like I was surprised. It wasn't like so. And then I took time to put it together. To really do the try to get New York back on the map because at the time like Dre was killing it and all that. So. That's how that came about.
I think that's what we missing, the love, like the New York love with rappers and celebrities. Because at that time, a lot of rappers would help each other out as well as the DJs. And it was more about love back then. And I think, like, even though me and Watt made tapes, we never considered ourselves competition.
Yeah. So y'all never had a rivalry?
Never. Nah.
Okay.
We never. Like, we may was going to think about a fake one, but we never.
Oh, y'all discussed a fake one?
But we never really did. Because what he did was so unique, and what I did was so unique.
Got you.
That it was like we was able to stand on our own separately, but still be, very powerful.
Me and Tony started as a beef because when he made 50 MCs,
Y'all started as a beef.
it started as that. So
he
I
made
made
50
95
MCs,
Live
and
1
50
and 2.
MCs
He
came
did
out.
50 MCs, and then on my next tape after 50 MCs, I said something to the effect of niggas took what I did and
Gotcha.
tried to flip it. So he said something back to me, but a mutual friend was like, "Nah, you're not doing this," and he put us together in D&Ds to talk because he had a session, I had a session. And we talked. As soon as we talked, we just seeing that you know what I mean? It ain't even about that. We got together. We made the Diaz Brothers intro that night when we met. The one with the phone tab when we did phones. We sat there, smoked out, and did the phone tab intro.
But back then, I mean, y'all individually had different rivalries with various DJs at times. I think you and S.
Me and Capri.
You and Capri had something.
Yeah, 90, 91.
How did those things come about? Like,
Me and him, it was just hearsay. It was he helped me get on fast. He even
He helped you get on
like,
fast.
Yeah, because he was like not on purpose. He
I got
made the
you.
mistake by saying my name at the top of a tape. It says Doo-Wop, your career is over
Why
before
did
it
he diss you?
started. Because like I said, hearsay, my people, I was back there when you roll with about 30, 40 dudes to every party, and he's rolling with that, they arguing amongst each other. 'Cause
Okay.
we went to high school together.
okay.
All right, sorry. We went to high school together. So he's already on. I'm trying to get on. And now our boys is beefing. They say, yo, Capri was at a club, the Club 2000. He said something about you. He never did, but I ran with the shit. Like, I was like, so I said something on tape. he replied. When he replied, that's what got me all kinds of attention because every tape he made was like a fucking album. So he said my name at the top of his tape and did a whole rhyme, 2 verses about me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I answered him, and people said that, you know, the answer was better than the initial.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember when I heard WAP 10, I was like, yo, this kid is nice.
It took like 5 years for me and him to squash that shit. That shit was like, yeah.
I remember that. They was like, yo, G, you heard this kid WAP? I'm like, nah, I play it. I was like, oh. I was like, one thing about Doo-Wop, he's nice on the rhyming tip.
Absolutely, always have been. So was the Bass Squad. So around them years, I mean, I feel like Ron G, Doo-Wop, S, Tony Touch, Capri, you guys were like, that was the top of the food chain, correct?
Yeah.
What was it like when Clue came along?
Well, for me, I knew Clue before he really got popular because he wanted to get down with me. He was like, yo, I want your manager to rock with me. For me, I think the only thing that I think that Clue did, he brung the new music to the game. Because when we was doing it, we was using our creativity.
Gotcha.
We was like, we had to have a dope intro. We had live rappers actually coming to the studio. It was a whole new vibe, blending. But when he came in the game, he brung new songs. Like he gets new songs before
Exclusives.
Everybody else would.
Yeah.
And I think that changed the game because people became nosy instead of let's hear what he can do on this tape.
He was working at RCA.
Yeah.
He was working for RCA, and he was getting a lot of, and I think he knew an engineer or something that was getting him.
The records straight from the studio.
Yeah, I had no problem with Clue. He just, I mean, he took it to another level with the CDs, and it all helped us because when we see that you could do mixtape on CDs, that was a whole different, that was different paper right there.
Right. About what year did that
96.
happen? Okay.
96. Because I remember around that time, K. Slay at the time he was actually selling mixtapes.
Oh, okay.
Like
Before
other people's tapes.
Okay.
But he couldn't get in touch with me, so he went on his own and just got some on his own. When I found out, I didn't know K. Slay was at the time. When I found out, somebody said this kid named Davon, whatever they call him. Davon.
Yeah, it was Silver. He was
right. So I called him, and he said the new joint, how many? He was like, you know what? I did sell your joints, but I buy some from you now. We make it right. I said, all right. He said, how many you got? I said, I got 9,000 pieces. He said, I'll give you $3 for each one. And he took 9,000 pieces. He said, I'm gonna give you half today and half next time you see me.
Crazy.
He was a good business.
Tapes, it was 150 for a master, 300 for a master. When we got real big, you maybe 5, maybe even 1,000 for a master, and you're dealing with about over 35, 40 stores. So it was good money with that, but CDs was a whole different ball game. Like, what I mean, it was a whole different ball game.
So did Clue become like? Did you guys feel like you had to kind of take that style on? Like when the game became exclusive, did you have to transition?
Late 90s, I stayed with the freestyles, but around 2000, I felt like I had to get some new shit right for the top of the tape. Like that's when, whatever year that was, when State Prop, when Jay was going back and forth with Jazzo and all them. Then you needed something. You needed an exclusive at the top of the tape because now the CD is the actual thing that people come. You don't have to put it in now. They just come and they look at the artwork and they look at the list. 95 Live sold without a list. You didn't know KRS was rhyming at the top of my tape. You didn't know.
No, it wasn't no cover.
It was the element of surprise.
Right.
And if you ever got a tape with the list, I didn't do the list. I sold the tape just as a new doo-wop tape.
That was our boy Muhammad. Ranjit, what doo-wop? I don't see him no more.
So you know what I mean? So, but with the CD, it's more of they have to see, they got a new State Prop on here or new whatever. So yeah, we definitely had to catch up to that.
I think for me, I tried to do both. I tried to keep the blends and I tried to do new stuff. I think that when I got to start putting new stuff on the tape, I think what helped me was when I put Jay-Z, Dead President, on the mixtape. And I named my mixtape Dead President. And for years, I was just like, yo, he about to be out of here. You know what I mean? Like Jay-Z, I was like, he out of here.
Early?
Yeah, something about his style. I was like, yo, he out of here. Because Big will always come to my house and we would ask Big. We'd be like, Big, you got some competition now, Big. You know what I'm saying?
Y'all would tell him this?
Yeah, like we would tell him that because Big was on some like, rest in peace to B.I.G., but he was rapping about like killing babies and wild stuff.
Yeah.
So Puff was trying to like smooth him out a little bit. But when Jay-Z came, he was like that baller from the start. And I was just like, yo, but he had that swag. So I was like, yo, he out of here. So when I played that President, I just was like, he was dope. And years later down the line, Jay-Z put me in his book, Decoded.
Yeah.
And he's credited me as like one of the people that helped him. So, and stuff like that. So for me, it wasn't about, strategizing anything. I just was like, yo, he's dope. And if you were dope, I just showed that love at that time. So I had to slowly adjust to the format that Clue was laying out. And I think that changed the whole mixtape game in general.
Absolutely.
So I people always would try to get you to be rivalries with somebody. It was like,
Right.
Yo, Ron, your boy Clue. And I'll be like, I got a lot of respect for him because, what he's doing is good. And even as a producer, when I was producing, I saw Clue and at Sony and stuff like that. And I would be like, okay, I'm driving a Tahoe with 24s on it, and he pull up in the Benz. And I'm like, am I doing something wrong here? So I started to see this, and I'm like, whatever he's doing is more power to him, but he changed the game. And I think after that, that's when the mixtape game became.
And when he signed to Rockefeller, that shit
yeah,
just pushed
it was
off.
a whole nother level.
Took off.
Right. I was going to ask y'all about that. What was y'all relationship like with labels back then in the 90s and getting deals and just
Well, it was beautiful because you could, I missed those days just running up in the label, just chilling, going to get some new music. I remember going to in '96, Taish Harris was working for Sony.
Yeah, I remember Taisha.
For Columbia, Sony, whatever it was that Nas was on, and she said, I gave Flex I Ruled the World. That's a new song with Nas, but I'm giving you this. And she gave me a cassette tape and it said Street Dreams on it. And 96 Summer Jam tape that I made, that was the only tape that had it for like 3 months. Like she didn't give it to nobody. She kept the word. She's like, I'm not giving it. If they get it, they're going to get it off your tape. Like, I'm not even going to give it to Flex. I'm going to give my Rule the World because that's what they, that's the video, that's the commercial. I'm giving you Street Dreams. She gave me Street Dreams. That shit set off. I set off the tape with it after the intro. And, that type of relationship I miss, like, with the labels. Just the whole going to Bad Boy, getting the new, the new joints. And it's just.
But let's speed up a tiny bit.
Okay.
Now we go up to later in time.
Okay.
And all I hear is DJ Drama all over the place, and I'm like, yo, how is he doing this? And this is how I started to realize the mixtape game is this big now. Because, I knew Who Kid was doing this thing, but when you came in the game, I was like, yo, he not only took it to another level that I think Clue was somewhere around there, but you had everybody from hosting to, it was like, I was starting to feel bad inside. They're like, yo, G, we love you, but Drama killing him. I was like, all right. And then one day I remember, I think Rip, they said, Ron, we need you to give out an award to Drama. And I was like, I was on the phone with Rip for an hour. I don't know if he told you. I was like, yo, what? Man, come on, man. Yeah. What about the old school people, man? He was like, yo, he took the game to another level. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do this because Drama keeping the mixtape game alive. You know what I mean? And, and I think at the end of the day, a lot of people may not realize that, we all follow your trend after a while in a different way. Even though you're from the South, we consider from the South.
Well, I'm originally from Philly.
Okay, from Philly. But we consider it from the South. He's like, yo, but you kind of helped us. I know helped me. I don't know about you, but you helped me stay motivated because when I was hearing when I used to go, like I said, when I say Abraham, it wasn't no lie. I had a boy named Abraham, and he was like, Run G, did it, drop my beat. I was like, all right. And he would give me your joints, and I would just listen, and I was like, yo, you killing it. What was the partner? Your partner name? Cannon. Yeah.
Yep.
And I was just like, yo. So I mean, everybody had their steps in the mixtape game. And one thing about me, I tried to always show love to every DJ. Like I never had like hate towards another DJ because when I was doing the blends, that was the blends. When Clue was doing what he was doing, when Watt was doing what he was doing, what Kid was doing, everybody had their way of they left a stamp. One thing I say about you, man, you took this game to a whole nother
level. We got it to a point where we thought it's probably that's where it's gonna go.
Right.
And then you Clue, you talk about Clue, but you did the same thing, right?
Yeah. I think you did it on an even bigger level because look at all of this. You know what I mean? Even before this, and like I said, like I used to, see Who Kid a lot, and I used to always think like, who's better, Who Kid, Drama?
Yeah, I bust Who Kid ass.
And I said, yo, and then I start hearing all kinds of stuff, and I say, you know what?
Yeah.
killing them right now. So I just want to give you.
I appreciate that.
no
doubt.
That's
salute
love.
on that, man.
And I mean, you know, for me, it's like, you know, I always, and the reason why I always pay homage is because everything that I accomplished, I did on y'all shoulders. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, I think that's very important for people to understand. Like, you know, one of my first tapes ever, and I say this all the time, was called Illadelph, and this was when I was still in Philly, and I was around, you know, Bahamadia was around. I was cool with Black Thought and Malik B, and we had this group called 100X, and I totally just copied 95 Live. Like, that was it.
Woo, gotta give you props.
Like, I completely copied the tape and, you know, just made what I considered a Philadelphia version. And mind you, it didn't go very far, but, you know, and then through the eras of, like, you know, I'm a real student of the game, you know what I'm saying? And you know, for me, like, it was just always something, you know, as you guys know, we're DJs first before we're mixtape DJs,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? But I was just always fascinated with mixtape DJs and just, you know, how big I felt like you guys were. Like, you know, you were larger than life. It's cool to be on the radio. It's dope to be in a party, but the mixtape DJ to me just seemed like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just a whole nother level. So, you know, I came through y'all era, and really y'all era is when I first started. Like, that's when I was in high school. That's when I was kind of, you know, just getting into mixtapes and everything. And then and Clue's era, and then, you know, around the time when Green and Who Kid were doing their thing, you know, me, Sense and Cannon, we were fascinated by that, you know. So we were looking at, you know, the style and the sound and, you know, the packaging. You know, those guys really took it to another level. And hence, me being in the South and me being in Atlanta, you know, I always wonder what it would have been like if I'd have stayed up north, because I didn't have the same type of competition. Like, we all know the mixtape game for that moment really lived and breathed in, you know, on the East Coast in New York. So I was able to take a you know, Southern music and emulate, you know, a Northern style per se, you know, when people didn't really pay attention or believe. Like, I remember calling stores like all up and down the East Coast and be like, yo, I got this new South tape, you know, I'm a new DJ, and they'd be like, nobody's really checking for South music. And I'd be like, look, let me just send you a box, you know what I'm saying? You check it out, you know, and we go from there. And, you know, I mean, my story is, you know, we all know how it became, but again, like, it's because of the groundwork you guys set. And what's crazy is that I always say this too, like, when the raid happened, and I wanted to touch on that, when I got raided and locked up and all that shit happened, I felt such a obligation and a responsibility, because I saw, you know, how many people kind of got scared, and, you know, that shit fucked the game up. Like, the mixtape websites at the time all kind of closed down, and, you know, Clinton Sparks and Slay, like, everybody had to kind of figure out different hustles, because it was like, man, if they got drama, like, at the time when Drama was the king,
at
like,
the time,
I was
the
that
biggest,
nigga, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was no getting beyond me, and they locked me up. So for me, it was like, damn, here's a culture that I grew up on, like, made me who I am. I can't see this shit die on my back. I would feel terrible, you know? So, you know, because of that, it was like I kept making tapes. Like, I didn't want it to seem like they scared us away and everything. And, you know, that was an important time for me. And, you know, one of the first people to really, like, come to my aid and speak up was WAP, when, you know, WAP made a record, you know what I'm saying, from my perspective. And, you know, that meant a lot to me at the time, you know what I'm saying? Because, you know, people weren't, like, the industry was kind of, they weren't speaking up the way they should have, because I think people were a little nervous, you know what I'm saying?
I know I was going to all the Africans. I was like, yo, what's going on? I don't know that my friend, they took all my stuff. I don't know. I used to be like, what? Oh man, how we gonna do this? And I think for me, for being in the game for so many years, I know for me, I felt like I was living on shells, on eggshells, because I was like,
What year was that?
It was 07.
07.
Yeah.
And because me and Watt was talking about that, and I didn't really know you did that, because after so much went on, I'm like, you know, I was worried about it, but I do want to salute you on that, because he took a risk at that, because at that time we were scared. I know I was scared.
Right. What was that like when y'all saw that, when that shit happened?
I was scared to death. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm coming from the 90s, late 80s. I'm like, what?
I was mad because I thought if that was gonna happen, it would have happened, like, already. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
what? Like they just waited for that time. I thought it was something else personal. You know, but I don't know the background.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well,
so
there's different theories about what happened.
Right.
So, but it is interesting to me that happened at a time when record sales were down. You know, mixtapes were like at an all-time high at that time and everything. And then, you know, I'm working directly with, like, you know, it was like, all right, you got to go to 106 in Park, you got to get on Double XL, and you got to do a Gangsta Grills. And here it is. I get locked up. Like, what the fuck?
right, and it was a time just years before that where the labels would call you all the time.
100%.
And now it's like
I
they
know.
almost caused it.
I know that that stays in your mind, and I know that you think about that. I know this, you interviewing us, but one question I wanted to ask you is, when you got out of that, was you worried about it? Like, was you worried that, you know, if you go back into that world, would it affect you? Would it come back? Or how did you mentally keep yourself together to deal with that? Because I know everybody in New York was sure. They was like, yo.
Yeah.
They're like, he the biggest thing out. How the hell they're gonna go all the way down the line? So I think for us, a lot of us was like, because I know time to time when I talk to one or two other DJs, they be like, yo, man, that's why I get out the game, son. And I'm like, I live this shit, man. I can't get out. You know what I mean? I live this. This is what I love to do. And in some kind of way, for me, that's why I say you was my inspiration, because I saw you keep going.
Right.
And I'm like, man, I can't get a 9 to 5, man. That's
sure.
all I know. You know what I mean? Producing music and, oh, man, I thought I turned it up.
It's all good.
So between this and producing records, and then when I saw that, I said, you know what? How can I keep the motivation going? And when I would hear the Gangsta Grills, and I would hear all the rappers and celebrities be on your tapes, and I was like, you know what? If drama didn't stop, I'm not gonna stop.
For sure.
No matter what's in
For
front
sure.
of you. And I just kept doing it. And I ain't stopped to this day. I mean,
Nah.
I know I'm an OG now,
Right.
you know, but
They call me OG now.
Yeah, so, you know, but at the end of the day, we doing what we love to do. And I think,
I mean, I felt I have went through a lot of different emotions. You know, I mean, I will say that I had a real strong team around me and a lot of support, and you know, they didn't let me feel like it was over. The crazy part about it is,
if you was from New York, they would have been like, it's over.
the crazy part is, I mean, obviously they made me more famous than I was, and I
Which
was
was
already
great.
hot.
Mhm.
You know, I wound up on the cover of fucking Billboard magazine after that shit happened, and you know, it was just I remember Super Bowl was in Miami that year, and I was walking on Collins Avenue, and it was just a different type of reaction when people saw me. Like, they really made me feel like Pac for a moment.
Right,
you know what I'm
right,
saying? It was
right.
like, you know, like I said on the song, I took the fall for hip hop. You know what I mean? I stand strong. And again, like I said, like, because like it's all I knew. Like this is my world. This is my life. Like I came up on you guys and watching the game and everything. So I couldn't, like, I just couldn't turn my back on what I believe was so important to the culture, you know what I'm saying, in so many ways. And I don't believe every part of the game is affected by mixtapes still to this day, even
Absolutely.
though shit has changed with the streaming and everything. Like, you know, you created a whole style, a whole sound. Like, Puff wouldn't be able to do what he did if it wasn't for you. You know what I'm saying? 95 Live, like, you know, that created a whole wave of how we heard music and freestyles. And when Fifth came along, like, Fifth changed the game when he was doing tapes, and when he would, you know, took freestyles and turned them into records. You know, Hove, Sign, and Clue, like, Jeezy, you know what I'm saying, Wayne, like, everyone who's anything that's made any money for, you know, the culture and these buildings, or just changed, have some form of relationship with mixtapes, point blank period. So, you know, just keeping that in mind, and, you know what I'm saying, for me, it was just like, I'm not turning back, you know. So
It's the backdrop. It's like but the whole mixtape game is always in the backdrop of all these
All the
stories.
time.
That's what we doing. This thing's gonna be out next year. Documentary that me and Tony Touch are doing with the guy. Yeah, you already did it with the guys that did the Stretch and Barbito joint. It's called
Crazy.
Tale of the Tape, and it touches on all that you just talked about. How it's in the background, how it was, you know, with the hustlers from just everything. So
I think that's the thing we miss too, the hustlers.
Yeah.
Like, I know for me, like, it's
they're still here, but it's different.
they
you know?
corporate now.
Yeah.
They you know, they don't want to be visually seen, but back then they did.
And then they became rappers.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Or vice versa, you know. But I think that's one thing that we miss in the mixtape game. I know I do. My inspiration was also the hustlers, because they would be like I said, they would tell me things, and that would keep me motivated as well. Because when they say, "Yo, man, I'm gonna get that next tape that you put out," that made me go, "Okay."
Right.
But you know, now that we're in a different day, it's not as fun as it used to be. I'll be honest. You know, it's just not. It's just so different now.
Yeah, I mean, the way technology and the culture is gone. I mean, I don't even know if a mixtape DJ can come along and
do
this
it,
year and do what we did. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because you know they got hip. iTunes got hip. You know, Spotify got hip.
I'm gonna tell you when they got hit. When they said make your own mixtape.
Real shit. Yeah.
I was like, what? This is not possible.
And you know, the other thing for me too, the last thing is like I felt like you can't really call yourself a great until you get hit with adversity. You know what I'm saying? So when I looked at all the greats, not even just in music, just in general, like you got to get knocked down to get back up. You know what I mean? So when I got knocked down, for me, it was like, all right, now this is the real test of, you know, what I'm built for. You know what I'm saying? So that I just used to tell people like back then, like that's just a chapter. Like this ain't my story. This is just one chapter for me. You know what I mean? And you know, I go on now in 2018 and, you know, whether it's parties or being around people, like, motherfuckers don't even remember that shit happened to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that's
it's a
a
whole
good
nother
thing
generation.
because,
And I'm proud of that because it's like they know me for other shit. They know me for records with Chris Brown. They don't even know that part of it. You know what I mean? I want to take it back a little bit, Ron G. Doo-Wop. What was the money like in the 90s?
I plead the fifth.
I mean, it was
You got to plead the fifth no more. It's the statutory
95
limitations
Live.
up.
95 Live got me my first car.
Got you your first
like
car.
cash, like a real car.
I'm
The parties came.
I'm just saying
the
I was
parties.
doing well.
You was doing well.
The parties, you know, 2,500 for an hour. You know what I mean? Like at that time, and that was like
Crazy.
it was unheard of. Yeah,
Right.
because of the tapes, not because of a record. We didn't have no songs out on the record. I know I didn't, but it was just because of what we were doing on the tapes. You know, the stock went up, so it was really good. And you know, like I said, the reason I said the CDs, I didn't really get to explain. The CDs was a whole different ballgame because the masters, you sold one master to a store, they copy it themselves with their machines.
On the
CDs,
tapes.
they wanted your actual CD that you stamped and you put the artwork on it, so they would buy them in bulk. You know what I mean? So that money was crazy too.
For me, I looked at it as a marketing strategy. I wanted to do production after a while, so I figured if I can keep a fan base and bring out an artist, then my money can become legal, I would say, and that's why I you know got Miss Jones her first deal. She was signed to Stepson Entertainment / Tommy Boy. And then after that, I started producing music.
But in the 90s, we never, I don't know, I didn't. You didn't think the money was illegal, though.
No, I didn't. But as time went on, I started seeing things and hearing things, and I'm like, okay.
But back then it was still for promotional use.
Yeah, it was still for promotional use only. But the only thing is that, you know, everything was, I would say, confident.
Yeah.
But it was in front of everybody's eyes. Because the hustlers was living a confidential life as well. So whatever their money was coming from, we had no idea. Where our money was coming from, they had no idea.
Got you.
But we all lived well. You know what I mean? So if I go to Hustler and say, look, $20, and then somebody say, hey, who you get this money from? I can't go. I got it from Joe Mo with the white and green BMW.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I had to be, realistic and just say it's all promotion. You know what I mean? And that's how I lived my life. And then once I got into production, it kind of all made sense because you couldn't stay on that wavelength forever. And I think when y'all start getting them big deals, you, Clue, a few others, I wanted that, but I couldn't get that because I was supposed to sign to Corey Rooney and Tommy Mottola, and they wanted to pit Tupac with Corey Guns. I said this is not happening.
With Corey Guns or Peter Guns?
Corey Guns, because
Son.
Corey Guns was coming out at that time, and
The son or the father?
the son.
Okay. They wanted to put Pac?
Yeah, because I had the Tupac vocal, so Miss Shakur,
okay, that's what
Miss
you're
Shakur,
saying.
she already said, okay,
I
you
got
can
you.
reuse it if you want. Just contact me or his estate, which I think it was his lawyer at that time. And I had this song, so, you know, I wanted to make this a bigger platform. I wanted to make that song. Okay, even though I put it on Big L album, Big L was on Raucous, I wanted to use this for a leading single on a bigger level. But far as like, you know, the money-wise, after a while, for me, I started looking at bigger things. I was like, well, I can't stay, running around with the mixtapes forever. You know what I mean? So, but it was good at the time. You know, it was good because you had people supporting you, and I had people really, and then the hustlers would book the parties as well. So it was like, it was a good look. It ain't where you or Clue or a few others took it,
It's
but
another lane.
yeah, but we had our time, But that's the difference, I think. Y'all became really, really big and started doing bigger things, such as yourself with the artists and the record labels. Where with us, we was like just mixtape guys. Like, y'all mixtape DJs. Y'all belong on the street.
I got you.
Right. So that's where I was like, I got to get out of this. I got to not get out of being a mixtape DJ, but I got to get bigger. Because I was doing the blends, it was like I was just known for the mix king. I wasn't known for a guy who could produce records. So when I start producing records like the Jennifer Lopez, All I Have, We Thuggin', then for Fat Joe, and they start selling records, then the producers was looking at me like, all right, you can make a beat. You can do it. You're not a producer. You're a beat maker. So, I had a hard challenge all my life, even though it made from the outside looked okay.
I feel like that was a transitional moment, like when We Thuggin' came out, because it was like, oh, that's Ron G, but on the production side.
Yeah.
Like,
But far as the Streetz making the mixtapes, we lived well. I mean, I remember had a few cars myself.
For sure.
I moved around the corner from you on Riverside.
Yeah. And that's why I said me and Wap always been like brothers, because I moved in Harlem one block. He was around the corner.
Like to the nice Harlem.
We used to go talk by the water like we were fucking hustlers.
What
So it was a crazy time. We always had good times though.
how did hosting get introduced into the mixtape world? Like when
Wasn't that around a 50 time? Like 50 cents?
I think it was a little before that. I feel like it was.
Who started doing that?
I remember Bad Boy. I remember Puff was.
K Slade was doing a lot of he'll do the phone call with Alpo and all that.
I remember that.
So they'll kind of put hosted by in a way.
I'm not sure who created that lane, to be honest.
I think it was K Slade. I could be wrong, but I think it was K Slade because he did it with a few but he did it with notorious
like
legends of the street. Yeah,
I'm not sure. Because I was trying to. I think for me, hosting was not where I was at, so I didn't really understand how it was working. But I knew that at the end of the day, I knew you was big on that, and that's why I said everybody had their own lane. And when you was killing it, I was just like, there's no way in the world I'm trying to be in competition with drama. There's no everybody in the world got drama hosting this stuff.
Yeah, and I think when I look at myself as my time came post 50, because once 50 came, mixtapes kind of became street albums in a sense. I was I've been making tapes for a long time, so I was making tapes with a majority of various artists and collaborations. But my claim to fame with Gangsta Grills was full bodies with tapes, whether it was T.I., whether it was Jeezy, whether it was Wayne. So that I was taking that lane and taking it on to, they basically became albums in the streets per se, and I kind of, that's where the game went from there. It went from that to, after the raid happened, a lot of people looked at it like the mixtape game was dead. But if you really think about it in a sense, thanks to Wiz and Kendrick and Cole and Drake, and they eliminated the DJ from the format, but those were all mixtapes that took them to the next level. You know what I mean?
I know when I was a few years ago, when maybe I'd say a couple of years ago, when I was going around to all the, they were not called mom and pop spots. They were called bootleg spots. Yep. And all I know is that our competition was becoming different because of the hosting. Yeah. And, for me, like I said, I always was always gave respect to the DJ. So I always got your joints. Even though, you was in your own lane, I would be like, yo, let me get that drama joint. Renji, drama big. And I would get it, and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, gangsta, grit. And I'm like, he got a drop, and you don't really have to talk as much. You know what I mean? And I'm sitting here like, yo, I can't do that. There's no way in the world I can. And so I had gave you a lot of respect on that, because I was like, well, for us, we had to when we had a cold, we had to drink tea and all this shit to do a whole mixtape. I'm like, I can't do this shit, man. I can't do it today. I'll do it next week. But then when you started changing the game, I was like, you know what? There's nobody who's gonna be able to come out the drama the way he did it. you know, in the way you did it. And after that, I said, for me, I never really wanted to do hosting, but if somebody came to me and said, yo, I'll let you, can you host my joint? But I think that's what was good about the mixtape game and what you did. You had cornered the market in different ways, where even Clue had to catch up to you. This is honest. And I don't even think he did. You know what I mean? To be honest, I think we all had our lanes, and like I was known for the Mixtape King and Deep doing the blends, WAP all over the place. WAP had the 95 Live, the live features, and even WAP era day, I was like, I'm not going to compete with WAP. I'm not going to get out of here and go get a whole bunch of rappers and try to sound like WAP. I'm going to just stay in my lane. And I think that's why we all got a lot of love for each other, because we didn't never cross those
100%.
doors where we like competition or being competitive with each other. And for hosting, I think that was a unique thing to do, because the rappers really needed that.
Right.
They really needed your promotional
Right.
thing,
Like
your
cosign.
promotional platform. They needed your voice to provide for them, because
Right.
a lot of artists at the early days, they didn't really have no direction.
Right. People ask me at different points, like to try to explain what I do, and I always try to tell them I'm like a chef. So like, you know, they bring me their chicken, right? You know what I mean, and they can cook their chicken any way they want, but I got a specific oven. You know what I'm saying? I know exactly what spices to put on it. You know, I know the exact degree to put it on to cook it right, 375, and when I serve it, it's better than if you.
You put a lot of people out of business, Drama.
That's why I never accepted like when somebody says how much you gonna charge the host, and we give them a number, that because I said I'm gonna treat it like it's my tape.
Right.
I'm not. They be like, but if I give you a little less, you just give me the drops and I'll
Right,
play some. I'm
right.
like, nah, I'm not doing that, because I want to take it, make an intro out of it, put skits, movie skits, whatever it is. You know what I mean, and just make it a movie. Exactly what you were just saying. Like,
Who do you consider at that time your competition? Because we from New York, we couldn't really see a lot of that. We just know you was killing them.
Well, in the South for a while, DJ Smalls, like
Oh yeah, I remember
between
him.
Gangsta Grills and Southern Smoke.
Shot. What happened to him? Nah, I ain't gonna say that.
Shout out to Smalls. He's
Nah,
still,
shout out to Smalls.
He's still doing.
I
His
haven't
thing.
seen him
He's
though.
in Charlotte, right?
I think he's in Atlanta now. Yeah, he does. He does like a video show.
Because I remember he was.
I mean,
out
around
there.
our time, who kid was popping. Green was still doing his thing. Vlad was out. Clinton Sparks. Slay was still doing his thing. I remember still that time with the mixtape. A very special moment for me is the Mixtape Awards. Rest in peace, Justo. But I'm the only DJ outside of New York that ever won Best Mixtape DJ.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That was the last year. So that was monumental to me, because again, mixtapes, the culture was such a New York thing. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, we had competition, of course, like everybody. Yeah, in the South, Camp, Jelly.
We couldn't see that from New York.
Yeah.
I know we could. I know. I was like, yo, I don't see nobody. Only thing I saw Smalls a little bit, but
Right.
what you did, I could not
I was crazy
see
on
anybody
Canal
else
Street.
in that scene.
I
was
made
like,
sure
nah.
of that. But again, I'm coming from Philly, so you know what I'm saying? Like I think that's part of our story. Like me, Sense and Cannon, like we're three guys from Philly that came to the South and kind of changed the, Southern hip hop culture and the mixtape game. Like after us, the mixtapes, like that was the time when you would see a mixtape cover and it was Wayne, it was Jeezy, like it was all niggas from the South. Like the whole mixtape game kind of came and lived in the South. You know what I'm saying? During that time,
They actually did. We was all out of business after a while. It was
Yeah,
like, yo, they was like, hey, go to Atlanta, Jake. Go to.
What was it like for y'all? Like when y'all would mess up on the tape? That's what because we had 4 tracks and the computer
We
by
did
that
that
time.
too, though.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
cheating.
95
Y'all
Live,
niggas like
95 Live was done in the studio.
straight.
Straight. But
So if you
the only
messed
ones
up-
I would say, and it's the joint I gave you, like from 91 to 93,
Classic.
they were done
Everything.
straight through.
Straight
I think
through.
for me, I would do
You
one
fucked
and
up a blend. You want to go back to the top?
Not really too much, because at that time it was like people probably didn't really know. But that's before the digital era, where everything could be lined up well.
Yeah, from
if you
95
look,
on, it was all 4
yeah,
tracks.
if you listen, you'll hear like beats going off a tiny bit and then come back on. But that's
I would
before.
after a while, I would lay all the music down.
Okay.
I always
and then
did that.
calculate where I'm going to say what. On
okay.
some real, right here.
I used to wonder that because I remember hearing the S&S Old School Part 2, and I memorized everything he said, every cut and
Those
everything.
was on the fly, but after a while, you like,
Yeah,
I want to really get it right. You know what I mean? So then you just do it on another track.
I had 4 tape decks. playing one, recording on the other, and the other one's for duplicating. Wow. So when one whole tape is I'm playing it from a 4-track. I'm just doing like what Watch said. I would just go in and do little talkings as the tape go down. So if I messed up, I was already able to correct it before I even did my vocals.
Do you guys feel like
even though they thought I was doing 3 turntables,
right.
at that time I was only doing 2. Until I had that test of time when we had to go to Rockin's Will, and I had to have 3 turntables.
Fat Five Freddy, King of Pre was on your shoulder.
Yeah, he was on my neck.
He was right behind you, like.
But those are the days, though, you know.
How do y'all feel now? I mean, do you feel like you guys, we all don't get the accolades and the love that we should from the culture, and just seeing where everything is with streaming and new wave? Like, how do you guys feel?
It's just a different time. I mean, that goes with everything.
Yeah.
In sports, some cats don't know, why LeBron is the way he is.
Yeah.
They don't know the magics that came before him. So it's. I mean, it don't bother me at all because you still got. And I'm not saying it. I told you when we first got here, we really appreciate you because you bring this to the forefront. K Slate brings this to the forefront. There's some cats that got the platform that you have that they kind of.
Yeah, some DJs don't like to show other DJs love.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I wake up in cold sweat. Sometimes I wake up and I'm tight. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I can have a great day and don't even show it. I think with me it's because I did so much for the game and helped so many people in the game, from rappers to celebrities to friends, and I'm like, but where's everybody at when I need them? And I think we all gotta understand that at times, like when you do this, you do it out of your heart, and this is what you love to do. Don't expect nothing back. But sometimes I wake up and be like, I want something back. Like one time, a lot of people may not know this, but one time I was actually waking up mad at DMX. Because I was like, X my homie, love him and everything. Because I'm like, yo, X came to my house, him and DNY, and he got on my tape. Next thing you know, he signed to Def Jam / Irv Gotti. And I'm like, I can't get a track on the album. You know what I mean? And I had to really think about these things. And I said, you know what? And then one day I see X in Queens, yo, dog, I love you, man. And I'm just like, okay. So I started learning that, if you understand the business, you know that some rappers may not have the power to pull you in.
And they fighting the fight too. You know what I mean? Even though we think some people look at us like we on a certain place, and some people look at them too. Like we look at them like, nah, they still on. Like Bustin' them is still in the studio every night trying to make that hit. So like Busta was the reason I wrote Busta, because Busta on 90 when Woo-Ha came out, whenever it was that 97, 98, put your hand. He would call me. Literally call me, and I would be the only DJ at the studio with him. He just wanted me to hear it, and then at the end of the night, give it to me on the tape. For my tape that I'm gonna put out, but then after a while, I ain't hear from Busta no more. You know what I mean? But I understood it though. It's like the game is changing. He's still trying to look for something else. He's not. He's gonna holler at K Slay. He just got his drama hour and drama and Clue. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is. It's just.
This is something I one time I said to Santana and his brother, because they were overlooking like
Santana and Joel.
Yeah, Joel Santana. And one time he was in Harlem, and this is a story I never really told anybody. One time, Santana and his brother, they was around his barbershop, and they jumping out. They had like 8 cars and all this shit. And he was like, and I'm like, I walked up to Santana, and I was like, yo, Jewels, I was like, yo, if you got anything new, hit me with it, you know what I mean? He was like, nah, man, yo, G, I didn't get that joint to K Slate. And I was like, you from the west side of Harlem. You're not from the east side.
Harlem's a whole different
You know what I
ball
mean?
game,
How you give
man.
it to this dude? And I had to times I had to calm down. And, a lot of people may look at me like, Ron is just a nice dude, man. But at times I'll just be sitting back like, yo, I don't get it, man. How can these things be possible? And I think that's because my heart is always in the hip-hop game and always in the mixtape game. And even with the Mace story, like Mace, I actually did a Mace demo before Mace got the deal.
Okay.
And a lot of people may not know that. And
when you say you did the demo, it was
I
like
actually
a tape.
did his actual demo.
Okay.
I had the 8-track. It was an 8-dat, actually. And he was coming to my house, him and Kuda Love.
Shout out to Kuda.
And I was going through mad stuff because at the time I had a manager who was out of control, Big Light.
I remember
he was always
Big
out of
Light.
control.
Big
I
Light.
used to get them calls, yo, G, your man, your man. And I used to be like, all right, I'm
First time I met you was with Big Light.
And I used to be like, yo. And then Kuda was like, yo, man, you running around here, man, doing all these things, man. Mace got to get this deal. And then when Mace got the deal, I was completely out the deal. And I was hurt behind that because I was like, hold on, Puff didn't holler at me not at all. Mace was just in the wind now. Here it is. I'm still at the studio with all this music. So at times I did have to get a grip and wake up and say, gee, just keep doing it. And that's why I said you became my motivation, because I saw how you took it to another level. And I was like, well, you know what? If these guys ran through little troubles here and there and they still going, Ron, just keep doing what you love to do. But it was times, man, I'm telling you, I was high. I was about to call dudes like, yo, you know what, man? Go to that nigga house, man. But I had to slow it down, because I said, I don't want to create a problem with rappers. I don't want beef in the streets where I can't walk and be happy. So I just humbled myself down and just was like, you know what, just keep doing what you're doing. But it been some rough times for me, man. I'm being honest, it had been. And I had to really say to myself, you know what, Ron, you did it for the game. You didn't do it for your personal pockets, that's you know. And that's the way I looked at it, because I was like, yo, it was times I wanted to do a book and put people's names in it. And then all of a sudden, the writer got sick. I'm like, what is this, a conspiracy or something? But these are just stories to talk about, man. You know, we all live.
Well, the stories need to live, you know what I'm saying? And I know sometimes, you know, it's a fine line, because, you know, you think about, you know, and I think about this myself too, like, it's so many stories untold, and it's like, where's the line between telling the story and quote unquote snitching? You see what I'm saying?
And sounding bitter. It sounded
bitter,
like you were stories that it was stories that I would tell you just for you. Like Biggie, for instance, when he broke his leg, he was coming to my studio. Like, he was on his way there. He's crossing the bridge to come to my studio to do a verse for my tape. And Biggie on a mixtape back then was unheard of. He was on his way. And I didn't believe Little C's. Little C's, I called, I said, yo, where y'all at? You're 3 hours late. Little C said, yo, we just had a car accident on the bridge. I said, all right, C's. I hung up. I thought he was just bullshitting. Like, they probably fucking with some bitches or something. And the next day it was on the news. He was like, yo, but that my part wasn't told. They didn't say I was going to do it. It didn't matter.
See,
nobody,
that's what I'm saying. Like,
but it's like little things like that.
Knew about.
You know, the time Hove, when After Reasonable Doubt came out, he actually said, I'm seeing him somewhere, he said, yo, call Dame. I want to do something on your tape. After Reasonable Doubt. That day that we had a studio scheduled, I had like, you know, Unique, they used to rhyme with the Bounce Squad.
Of course.
She was my girl at the time.
Okay.
We had some shit going
Ghetto
on.
Girls,
that day.
right?
Yeah. We had some shit going on that day.
I remember that.
And I wasn't in the mood to go to the studio. And I called Dame like, yo, can we do it like tomorrow?
Damn.
Worst mistake ever. He was like, I see. And he hung up the phone. I ain't never heard from niggas ever again in life.
But I think these are stories that people may not never even known. And
of course.
Sometimes
before social media.
It's good to tell a story, you know, without really hurting people and getting people revved up. But you know, like, you know, I think that we all love the game so much, man, and that's what's good about it.
For sure. 888 Shade 45, Ron G, Doo-Wop are here. Did you think that hip hop would take it this far?
I did. I knew hip hop was gonna be. I mean, after seeing so many celebrities, rappers become millionaires, I was like, there's no stopping, man. And like Streetz, like recently I seen Naughty by Nature. They about to go back on tour, the Mixtape tour with New Kids on the Block.
I seen that. How crazy is that? The
now,
New
let
Kids
me
on
tell
the
you,
Block are doing a mixtape tour.
This is what I'm saying. I love Streetz and I love Vin Rock, and you know, they could be giving me all kinds of naughty gear. And when I seen the mixtape, I'm like, hold on, was New Kids on the Block on a mixtape? But then wifey, she had to explain it to me. She said, you know what? In our era, if you're going to put a New Kid song on the block, you can make your own mixtape. And I'm just like, I don't get it. And I think that's because we come from a different day, a different age. Because I'm like, I never put New Kids on the Block on my mixtape. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, it's just a new game, a new day. We got to all respect it and just, you know, show each other love.
For sure. Appreciate y'all, man.
No doubt.
Same here, brother.
Good
Thanks,
looking.
gentlemen.
I'm looking forward to the documentary, too.
Enjoy that flash drive.
I'm going to enjoy this flash drive. What?
Everything is on there, brother.
Wait till I tell
Everything.
Cannon I got
and the joint I did for y'all is on
It's
there
on
too,
here
like
too?
separately.
Dope.
Because I figured bring it here. You know, I didn't know if you was going to do like a live set.
No.
So I brought this on there.
888 Shade 45, Ron G is here.
Ron G!
Let's get it.
Right here on the Streetz is Watching on Shade
I don't
45.
get no calls. They're like,